So here we are today in the fabulous garden in Wickham. I know, I love it, it's amazing. And I'm with the tremendous Steve Manning, and you're going to see me walk in from this side shortly. And I'm going to sit in that chair. So we might have some birds and other things that you can hear in the background, but we're going to talk today about business and small business, and also just an excuse for Steve and I to sit in the sun, to be fair. So hello, my friend. How are you doing?
Hello. How are you, Becky?
I'm all right.
You all right?
It's like we've not seen each other
Good.
for
I
ages,
know.
isn't it?
It's
We've
so
been
funny,
together
isn't it?
all day. All day we've been together.
Relaxing, having some lunch.
So actually, what we're doing today is we're recording a podcast, as well as a video, and we're hoping that this video actually works, else otherwise we're both in trouble, and I'll have to come back and do it all over again. But it's a delight to spend some time with you.
Yeah.
It feels like we've known each other forever.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dangerous, especially for me, because you own the most amazing eatery here in Wickham, and I'm going to be here like forever, and you're never going to get rid of me ever again. So tell me a bit about your podcast, first of all, and what you need me to do today, and then we'll have a little chat and we'll see what happens.
I kind of have a dream, and I think everything starts with a dream, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And my dream is to help people into business, and not sort of any sorts of people, people that maybe think that they have limiting beliefs about getting into business. I want to be kind of an advocate for them and help them to see that they can do it and it is achievable by anyone. Is the main purpose.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that, because obviously there's a lot of people out there sort of saying the same things, and we know that you and I are particularly special when it comes to providing this sort of help and support. But what kind of drives you? Can you tell us a little bit about your sort of own experiences about starting a business and what you do in the fabulous village? I say town, it's Hamlet, Hamlet of Wickham.
So really my opportunity started probably when I started working for Warwick's, for a business that I work for now, and I probably will never leave because I love working for this business, and working for those guys I ended up realizing that they were investing lots of time and effort in me, and that got me thinking, well, if they're doing that for me, why can't I be doing that for other people? So by them investing in me, so I'm rambling now.
That's all right, don't worry, we like a ramble.
By them investing in me, it was only logical that I needed to do things to get to a point where I can then invest in other people, and that's kind of what started my journey of becoming an entrepreneur myself, really, and then figuring out that if I can do this, then anyone can do this. Especially, like you say, my background from being a dyslexic person and struggling as I got older, I realised that actually wasn't what defined me. And what defined me was the hard work and the ethics that I put into life, if you like.
I think there's, we were talking earlier, and we've been together like a really long time today, like really long, and that's how all good relationships start, I think. But one of the things we spoke about earlier was 35% of self-made millionaires are actually dyslexic. And one of the big things in Startup Disruptors in our community, when I started, is that we saw a lot of people wanting to start businesses, but that hadn't done well at school, that really got quite frustrated in terms of having an additional need. So dyslexia, I can't even say it, or processing problems, or ADHD, actually coming to us for support, or coming to me for support as an individual and saying, I'm struggling, because the formal methodology of support as we know it has been designed a certain way to fulfill certain criteria. And from our point of view, I then started digging down, and one of your questions on your fantastic cheat sheet that he's got behind his chair is actually about why did you start your business. And I think I came from that very, very cynical place of coming out of corporate after a really long time. Our stories are quite similar. In fact, we've been working on sort of parallel lines, I think, around that, and actually looking at things and saying, how do we take the experience that we've had in corporate and make something of that? Because I didn't like that environment. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel authentic for me. Although, I had a very successful career for a really long time, there was just something missing. And I've talked at length on other podcasts about this before. And being a neurodivergent person and having ADHD, you don't realise how pigeonholed you get into a career because somebody felt that you were good at it, but it wasn't sort of like nothing was filling you up.
Definitely.
Sort of from a sort of spiritual point of view, for want of a better phrase. So I think there's something in the build up, the build and makeup of people who have additional needs around dyslexia or dyspraxia or ADHD, where they feel as if they need something more.
Yeah.
They feel that they're not contributing to society just by earning a paycheck. So there's lots of different things I think that motivated me, but really it was looking at how you could take that corporate experience and maybe make it useful in society for other people. And I think that both you and I come from that place of,
Definitely.
I've got this experience.
Yeah.
What do we now do with this knowledge?
Yeah,
Because our
exactly.
responsibility is
Yeah.
actually to share that with the next generation. So tell us a bit about your coaching business and why you decided to start
Yes,
that as
so-
well, because this is something quite new.
Yeah, it's quite new.
Yeah.
Yeah, brand new, and the same with the podcasting and stuff. And it's basically, the website is to tell people what my story is. Bit like, how similar our stories are. It's quite weird.
Yeah.
But to explain to people sort of all my aha moments, I guess, where I actually realised that how limitless the universe actually is and how everything is achievable. So it explains sort of all the moments of my life that sort of clicked into place, and I try and sort of extract that and understand why did it click into place, and is that something that I can put down on paper and someone else can read, or can I put it on a video for someone else to read or watch that can resonate with it, if not one for a better word, and understand that, oh, maybe I'm a bit like that, and actually that's that I understand that, and that's logical now to move on from that, and things are achievable. And then from that I want to add a business element where I want to kind of explain to people the different avenues into business, and make it achievable, make it sound like, it's things that they can do, and everyone's got the opportunity to do it. It's kind of the thing. And then obviously I've got the blog on there, which is kind of like a brain dump of information, which could be anything from spirituality to business, but it's kind of things that I'm thinking about. I've done a lot on the high street lately and stuff like that, my thoughts about where we should go with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's as much of a journey doing it in itself. If anything, it's helping my mental state just by putting pen to paper, if you like, or just coding onto a website, and if other people can benefit from it, then if I've helped one person, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I think it's really pivotal, because one of the big things that we've always been big on is founder to founder led community. So and for people that don't know you, and also that might not live in this beautiful part of the country that we're very blessed to live in Wickham in Hampshire, is actually looking at the stuff that you do in the village. So if we kind of just describe what sort of, it's a typical sort of like middle English, beautiful picturesque village, and you own a yoga studio here. You own like a little sort of coffee shop and marketplace area, very successful, and it's a beautiful place to come. No plugs intended, but come. It's got great salads and great cake. But I think it's about saying, how do successful business owners like you actually help startups that might not have any experience, or that might come from a different background or a different area of, an area of deprivation. We talked earlier and I said, I'm very open that I had I was born on the edge of a council estate in 1971. I have a fantastic life. I've worked very hard, but what I want to actually say to people is that it's possible for anybody, and also that I want people to not set their own beliefs by where they were born, because the place where you're born doesn't define where you end up.
Definitely.
And I think for me it's always been about that sort of aspiration, that if you want to learn, if you want to become educated, then that's actually really important. I think we're invaded by a dog, which is always really important. Hello.
Tina.
That's all right, don't worry. So always an impromptu dog visit during our videos, it's fine. But really it's important, I think, for everybody to understand that anything's possible in life. And I think that Startup Disruptors as a community was all about that, which was saying, no matter whether you want to start something from your back bedroom and that actually stays in the back bedroom just to create a living, because you don't want to be in corporate anymore, that's fine. If you want to create a technology business, that's also fine, but you need the right tribe of people around you to be able to help you grow. And I think that the issue is when you are perhaps dyslexic, and it'd be interesting to talk about your school experience, which we spoke about earlier, is how that can actually create imposter syndrome. So do you want to sort of tell people about your experience at school?
My educational experience was, I was the dyslexic, and I was tend to be put into a different class than the other kids because I couldn't learn like the 95%, and for them obviously to stick to their criteria, I was then removed to another classroom. That was my worst experience, and that's not good for anyone's mental state, especially as I'm not stupid. I learn very differently. That's only what the case was. I think we do understand a lot more about that these days, but we're still I think quite old-fashioned in the way that we deal with any special needs, I think. But yeah, transferring that into business and was not actually a massive issue. I was a very positive person, probably thanks to my mum, because she drummed it into me that I could do anything I wanted to do, and that stuck with me. And I always wanted more, so my brain was constantly working. I'm the ideas man. I'm always thinking of the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. But thought I would never be able to actually do those things because of my limiting beliefs, and that's for the special people, they can achieve all those sorts of things. And then thanks to the family that I work for now, they gave me, I guess, the vehicle to actually, and the flexibility to unleash the beast, if you like, and I was able to explore all these areas, and they do deal with a lot of property, and they deal with a lot of businesses, so I could use the things that they owned to my advantage, and actually use those to test theories, to try different things out. And eventually I ended up working with my business partner now, by making his business even more successful than it was, and basically have gone on from there really. We bought a coffee shop together. Me and my wife run a yoga studio. We founded that about 6-7 years ago, and so it just proves it doesn't really matter where you come from. What matters is that you're going to reach your goal. I never knew that I could achieve something in my life, and I do not think like that now.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, one of the things we discussed at length over lunch earlier was the fact that actually that mindset and those people around you and that advocacy is the most important. And one of the biggest problems around growth is what we call a fixed mindset or limiting beliefs. And what we actually see within people who have additional needs, and certainly with the 5,000 people that we've helped start up and scale up businesses since 2016, is actually people need to get out of their own way. Your own ego is the only thing that's going to stop you. Money is an issue. That's a separate podcast for another day, certainly around funding and funding women. One of the biggest things that we spoke about is the scarcity mindset. So a lot of people very early on are taught that money is scarce, and often we see this a lot in poverty. It's about empowerment around financial education, rather than saying that money is scarce, because it's not. If you've got the right connections, it's not. Unfortunately, we have a terribly old school system in Britain that means that we have a lot of disadvantage at the bottom, and the wealth creation isn't as easy as it is in other countries. But this is something that we're hoping to disrupt and to change through looking at some of the things that we personally both want to invest in the future as well. So I think from our point of view, it's about how do we change those systems to be more in tune with the people that are actually engaging with entrepreneurship, that want to start something, because it's actually quite alienating. I think you'll agree. Irrespective of how you identify in terms of gender, I think it's frustrating because it's just you have a brain that is wired differently and you think differently, and therefore the systems aren't fit for purpose. Also, I think there's some insights around neurodivergence, or even the word neurodivergence, which just means different brain wiring. Also, how this can make somebody very good at something. So we were talking around dyslexia and pattern recognition. When you actually look at people like MI5 and GCHQ, they actually actively have now neurodivergent hiring policies for people who have different brain wiring. So everything that you're actually taught at school that you're no good at is actually what could make your career better, more special,
massively.
and could make
Yeah,
your,
definitely.
you know,
Yeah.
a lot of money. But again, I don't think society sometimes wants us to know that,
No.
because you don't then fit into the systems that
Yeah.
have been created for society to function, without getting too political and geopolitical. But I think, again, it's always interesting to have these discussions because then they don't happen.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think they're often open.
No, they're not.
I don't think the systems are open. I don't think that really some of the ideologies are quite right.
No.
When we look at a lot of the well-meaning public sector support, but not necessarily any support that's good. And that is the fault of the fact that the systems aren't designed correctly to support the people that want to interact with those services.
Yeah.
So one of the things we were talking about earlier was how do we redefine those systems to be able to support small businesses. But one of the things I did want to talk to you about, because obviously you have a lot of knowledge around this where I don't, because we come from very different worlds. I come from a very service-led business, which is kind of like a low-cost input in terms of overheads. In terms of anybody that's kind of looking, and I've got to be honest, I'm mystified by the whole high street system. But if we're looking at people that, for example, are looking at setting up shops or retail premises or cafes, obviously you're talking about expanding your coffee shop empire, hooray.
Yeah.
So if anybody has got a shop in Petersfield or Alton that they don't want any more, then let us know. Get in touch with Steve or myself. We're looking for more premises. Then let us know. But can you just tell us a little bit about, there's this whole thing around things like commercial leases, business rates. How do you know what questions you should be? I think this might be another podcast for another day, just about different things. But can you give us an idea of maybe 2 or 3 critical aspects that people perhaps overlook when they first start?
Definitely. I think for that sort of thing, you definitely want a strategy, and you want a budget in mind. So those are critical, because you need to figure out what your end game is, and always have an exit plan, like I do. So you want to have an idea of what sort of income, what sort of turnover you want, what sort of profit you want, and what sort of rents you're willing to pay, and what sort of rates they're willing to impose. And there is it does vary a lot. Rates especially, to me, it looks more like guesswork to me when they rate a premises, and I'm sure they have a set way of doing it, but to me it looks very, very random.
So that's why he
it's like this shop can pay £600 and this one can pay £1,000, but there's no reasoning really behind that. So you want to look at that, and you do have the right to oppose the ratings and to have them re-rated. So don't think that that's the way it is. It doesn't have to be the way. You can say, why is it not fair? You can give them a reason and give them a case study. The shop next door is paying this amount, and I would be paying this amount. That doesn't make sense.
So is that kind of like questioning, sort of like a bit like council tax banding?
Yes, it is.
Like
a
banding of rates, whereby
like
you might have 2 shops next door to one another that should be identically rated, but one's got like 2 square meters more, and might be weirdly cheaper.
They rate it by the metre squared.
Gotcha.
So
see, I was already like mathsed up. I was just like, I've already lost interest. But,
so you can have shop A could be paying £200 per metre squared. Shop B is paying £50 per metre squared. Why is that? Obviously, you might drop shop A in it by saying this, but that's the truth of the matter.
It's business.
And then again, when it comes to renting shops, you can negotiate with landlords, and I tend to think it's good to try and speak to the landlord if you can, and actually have some sort of personal connection with them, because you'll know whether you resonate with that landlord. If it's kind of done over the phone, over a contract between solicitors, it can be quite tricky, because they don't know you don't know them, but you want to negotiate good terms on a lease, for example. And then we get into staffing and stuff like this, but I think what I'm trying to say is, don't try and overcomplicate everything, because actually if you break it all down into separate elements, you can handle it, and you can know whether it's a risk worth taking or if it's a no, I'm going to keep looking, because you'll have a budget in mind for whatever venture you're doing.
I think there's something quite interesting around how you de-risk things, and we talked about the difference between male and female led businesses earlier. And I think this is really interesting because women don't have access to money in the same way, and this is proven time and time again. I won't bore everybody with the statistics, but it's quite interesting that women often de-risk their businesses more, especially if they're running, like for example, a clothing shop. Or I'm obviously not trying to stereotype women's businesses in any way, shape or form. You can do whatever you like, but if we just say, look, you might be opening a clothing store or whatever, I would say to people, try and de-risk that as much, maybe looking at an online provision first.
Definitely.
Or maybe a door-to-door provision, or an Avon or an MLM, or just selling it through your friends and other channels, and really get to grips with your market, which can build up your cash flow.
Start small.
So we see a lot of high failure rates where people haven't sense checked the market, so they'll sort of go out and say, I'm gonna I want the big premises, I want this, I'm gonna get a business loan, and we're kind of like sharp inhalation of breath and no. Obviously things like hospitality are different. If you're doing like coffee shops or lunches, or you can't really kind of do that, but you could again start maybe a door-to-door delivery business if that would be the thing that you'd want to do. But I think it's very hard now, and we see a lot of this because unlike Wickham, which is full, there's lots of high streets. Certainly we look at Portsmouth as being an example of this, where they're going into decline. There's a whole debate around business rates being abolished potentially if there is a change of government, and none of us know what's going to happen, or perhaps having a different classification, which I think can only help, because obviously it's a massive barrier to market entry almost. Before people begin, you've got to have quite a level of wealth, a good financial credit history. So again, I think I'm with you on what is it you want to do. Do you want a lifestyle business? What do you want your life to look like? Because when you have a retail shop, you're opening it, you're closing it, you're working there probably 90 hours a week. You'll be sleeping there.
You want to do something you enjoy.
You've got to make sure that you like doing the thing. So again, I think it's about choosing very carefully what you want your life to look like. And people don't, and this is why I think coaching and actually mentoring is key. Somebody said to me very early on, what do you want to do? And of course there's an assumption that being a woman you would want to start a social enterprise or a charity like CIC, and you can possibly want to build a technology business, and we have to be very careful of stereotyping and pigeonholing people into what they want to do, what they want to achieve, but again it's just that is bad coaching or bad advice or bad support. So again, for you, especially if you're watching this and you're wanting to start up, just get connected with people in your area that are trustworthy. Reach out to us. We're fine with answering anything.
Absolutely.
So put things in comments. I'm happy to send questions to Steve, so I'm not answering any, to Steve to answer any of them, especially around sort of high street retail, business rates, other things. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. In terms of the UK, I'm sure the questions are roughly the same.
Definitely.
And we can always signpost you to other people in different parts of the country if you're watching this anyway. But I think there's so much we could unpack in this, but we're going on forever. I didn't know whether there's anything you wanted to ask me, because you've got a whole sheet of paper.
So I was going to ask you some questions, and this is coming at it from the angle.
He hasn't even primed me on this.
No checking. You're not allowed to look at the answer. So this is basically coming at the angle of someone who's a complete novice. They want to expand, or they think that they want to do something with their life, I guess, but they just don't know how or what to ask and who to ask. And I think for me, for example, I could never quite believe that all these rich and successful people were actually real people that I could ask questions to.
Yes, it was intimidating, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I've now realised that actually, I can ask questions, and usually 9 times out of 10 they'll give me the answer for free. So and it is about networking and discussing these things. So
I think what's interesting about our relationship, and this is just what shows you the power of technology, is you've been in we have a free group for coaching and mentoring, full of people who are as bonkers as Steve and I. So use that group, that's free. We've always done that, because in 2016 my frustration was, where do you go for the trustworthy people that get how my brain wiring works and will give me an honest answer? So that group, which is Startup Disruptors on Facebook, just search Startup Disruptors and join us in that group. You're watching this on the feed, so you might not be in the group, or likewise you might be on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever else I post this. Please do join us on Facebook. But I think for novices, especially, they spend a lot of time procrastinating.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in doing
Yeah.
rather than procrastinating and planning. So I would say, literally, it's very basic. And for people of our generation that will understand this comment, it's much more Derek Trotter than it is Steve Jobs. So have I got a thing? Can I sell the thing? How much can I sell that thing for? So if I'm selling handbags, how much do I buy that handbag for? How much do I sell that handbag for? Wow, I've made a profit. Let's go and buy some more handbags and sell some more handbags. That is entrepreneurship. That is it.
Yeah.
People overcomplicate it. I've got to have a website. Please don't play to your own ego saying I've got to have an 0333 444 number. I've got to have a website. I've got to make it look sexy. Nobody cares. Genuinely, nobody cares for about it's like year 10 for me, and I still don't think anybody actually really takes any notice of anything that we're saying. So I'd say nobody cares. Fail as much as you can. Don't be afraid of failing. If you are failing and you're learning, if you're not failing, then you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
If you're not losing money, you're not doing enough. Limit the amount of money that you are losing. So if you've got a startup pot, and it doesn't matter, it can be anything. I think there's a list of 20 free AI tools that can do everything from logos.
Oh, that's amazing. I use AI all the time.
Yeah. Shush, it's our secret. So I'd say people now are saying, oh, I can't do it. And actually, there's never been a better time to do it,
massively.
because there's so much stuff that used to cost old farts like us money.
Self-development, there is absolutely stacks out there.
There's so much stuff, but don't become actually paralysed by Google and also over Googling things. Get yourself out, especially if you procrastination is the number one enemy in entrepreneurship. So say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week. It's not a priority. I need to make everything look, my brand look beautiful. I need to spend hours on Canva. One of the things I said to you earlier was don't spend too long investigating things when you pay somebody else to do it.
Yes.
And also micromanaging and not knowing when to give things away. I think that's my advice. I don't know whether that. I just say get out and sell something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, keep it simple, grow it organically.
I mean, when we built the brand, started to build the brand, it was all free.
Yeah.
So I used Facebook. I just used everything. Facebook, Instagram, local pubs that gave us space for free. And I just thought, how do I monetize this? How do we make this happen? What do people want to know? How do we engage with people? How much will people pay? Market research.
Yeah.
And definitely don't start anything before you've researched it.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
boring and it's dull. And it's the sexy bit that people don't want to do because it's not having your name on a website anywhere. But literally, I mean, we've spent about 8.5 years now researching our tech platform that we want to build. And people are like, what? And it's like, yeah, it takes time. You're not going to, and also you're not going to make, the number one myth I want to bust is you're not going to make 85k in year one.
Yeah.
No such thing as passive income. I don't give a monkey's what anybody tells you on TikTok. It's hard graft, it's long hours, but nobody wants to hear that because it's not sexy and everybody wants a shortcut.
And I've been guilty of that. You know,
I think
and
we all
I've failed so many times trying to take a shortcut, and it's not. It is drive, it's commitment.
Yeah, it's
The
boring.
drive and commitment, I think, gives you the value. And once you've got the value, that makes you an investable person.
Yeah, and I think actually being credible at what you do and having a strong reputation and just having good ethics, honestly, your character speaks volumes, and that your reputation is what everybody's saying about you when you're not in the room. And literally that is, over time, will be what precedes you. And I think in the Facebook group that you were part of, that's how we've ended up here today. It's like, oh, I've been following you for ages and I'm like a stalker and everything. And I'm like, that's great, because I know good stalking's fine, but I don't have to report him to the police just yet. But I think from our point of view, it's just about how do we bring those like-minded people together to really help each other. One of the things you and I have both spoken about today is how do we change the funding and the finance system so watch this space. That's another thing that we're going to be working on shortly. And also get people invested that have got really good ideas, but are, I think, definitely, through my experience, being let down by the systems that are currently in place to not have, small amount of test trial money. What I mean by test trial money is, just a couple of £100 to make, does something work? And we say a couple of £100 lightly, but when you start, that money can be stretched an awful long way. Women's businesses especially are just so woefully underfunded, and we know in areas of deprivation, we do a lot of work in inner cities, and I was born in an inner city in Leicester, is actually we say these, you know, amounts of money like we're quite flippant, but it's a lot of money to somebody that perhaps can't pay the bills.
Yeah.
So again, what I would say is you can't. It's either time or it's money, or it's both. I wouldn't. You have to place a value on your time. I think especially as you scale up, people don't.
Yeah.
And as you start to get revenue in and you start to get up towards the 85k, just under the VAT threshold, that you start to value your time and outsource things and start to pay people. But a lot of people are, how do I get from nothing?
Yes, exactly.
And that's the hard part.
Those are the guys that we want to speak to.
Exactly.
And we want to help.
How do we get from nothing, that ideation phase? You know, that I've got that idea. You know, whilst I'm, you know, on Netflix or doing whatever, on the sofa, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to get help, and I think that perhaps my spelling lets me down, or my lack of attention, or my lack of concentration lets me down. But I know I'm creatively really good at this thing, or I've always wanted to run a coffee shop, or I perhaps want to run a coffee shop that benefits people that have special needs, and I want to employ people and perhaps make it into a charity. So there's all sorts of stuff here that's really hard for people to unpack, because business is really, really very complex.
Yeah.
So you do get, it does make me laugh, because I can go to a company's house and set up a company for like 20 quid or 30, I can't even remember what it is anymore. And I've done that, and I'm like, yeah, but do you know the legal obligations in terms of accounting of once you've paid that couple of quid, and now you're in for more money, and do you know how to do your tax return? Because if you don't, you're going to have to get somebody else to do that. So really, please, dear Lord, don't rush into any of this before you've come, and perhaps even try sole trading would be my advice. In the old days it was very different, and I don't know what your experience was, is that everybody would say, I've got to set up a limited company because I don't want the liability. To be honest, most businesses in Britain, if you're a sole trader and something goes wrong, people, are they going to prosecute you? They might ask you for your money back. Probably not, because you're in their neighbourhood, but you know, I'm not a legal expert, and all the lawyers will hate me now for saying this, but I think you have to be really careful about what you're getting into if you don't know anything about business.
Yeah, and I definitely want to cover that in my website. So I mean, a lot of the times it will refer to, you need to go and seek advice from the proper people, but I can at least give guidance that you know, explains why there are certain things in place. And why you might need an accountant, because it's a limited company. You need a business banking account if you've got a limited company, but if you're self-employed, you don't, but they will try and convince you need a business bank account. You want to keep your outgoings as low as possible. So hopefully I can educate people a bit on that as well.
I think you and I have already decided we're probably going to do more on this anyway, just to say how to demystify boring stuff that we're not really that interested in, because it's getting in the way of the thing that we're doing. So any more questions for me?
So
it's fine if you get a piece of paper. It's fine.
Cheat sheet out.
Get the cheat sheet out.
So this is going to be about you now. It's like, this is your life. Do you remember this is your life?
Don't do this to me. You didn't tell me that this was going to.
So, Becky, education career path. So how did you start? Which direction did you find yourself going in initially?
No direction, generally. Rudderless, I think, is the way that I would describe myself. So I think for me, like you, and we probably should have recorded all this stuff we were talking about this morning, but we'd have to take out all the expletives, certainly from my point of view. I loved school, weirdly. I was very, very swotty. If anybody knows what I loved school, I loved learning, but I didn't like the environment. So whereas I liked the learning, I struggled with the kind of day-to-day, very tight, found the routine and the actual social inclusion part very stressful, just the noise.
It's like the institutionalised
so
lifestyle.
School for me was, I found it, my actual refuge was reading. So I'm a prolific reader, prolific writer, and that's how I ended up doing my degree in creative arts and writing and film and video. But I was in a special group for gifted individuals. It's hilarious because I was in the not so gifted group for some things and then the totally gifted group for others. So whereas I was in the gifted for creative writing, English literature, loved it. You know, I was reading like Wuthering Heights at age 8. You know, and you know, I love a bit of Bronte and Austen. Typical, very British middle class upbringing. For a working class kid, that was hard. So I was kind of exhibiting the gifted tendencies as such, but I was demonised where maths was concerned. I had terrible education at primary level, and I then later built a career in technology. So I don't know how that works, but I think there's this mythology in technology that you have to be a coder, and actually you don't. The creative thinking and your thinking also is the way that we can look at pattern recognition, and also about how data points come together, without going into too much technical boring detail, and how algorithms work and what the behavioural outcomes. So I look a lot around customer behaviour, customer analysis, intuitively knowing how people experience something, what the end user experience is going to be. So I'm good at that sort of stuff. But at school, chronically awful subjects, bored, just chronically bored in subjects that I didn't like. Looking out the window, really not good. Amazingly did well at O-level, so last year of O-levels, and I'm that old, and CSEs. Bombed my A-levels because my parents got divorced. Was predicted like 3 A's at A-level, ended up with 2 D's and an E. Luckily education was free, degree education was free in the country at that time. So went off and did a degree at Manchester Metropolitan University. Spent a lot of time in the north of England. Love it, love the northwest, and the most amazing part of the country. And graduated, did everything. I think we're kind of jack of all trades, master of none or mistress of none. Sold cars for a living when I first started, got on a graduate management scheme for Tesco, went into retail, helped launch Clubcard. Back in the day, worked on a think tank project for that. Really not a fan of retail. I just find it very, very constraining and difficult, and I couldn't understand why you'd want to line up cereal boxes, even though it appeals to my OCD. I don't understand why you would be graded on how beautiful your cereal boxes look. Just doesn't make any sense. As long as it's in stock, who cares? My manager would turn in a grave now if I said that. Ended up working in clothing for a while. Worked for a fantastic clothing company, doing a lot of management of high-end bespoke clothing product. So a lot of banks, a lot of bus companies, a lot of building societies. Was managing a staggering amount of money when I look back at it now, key accounts, when I was 23, 24, and I just thought it was normal to be as sad as me and want to work as hard as me, and I don't really suppose I had a life, because life for me has always been, I want to work, I want to solve the problem, I want to sell the thing. So I've spent a lot of time in international sales and marketing, worked in Formula One for a promotional clothing merchandise company based in Twickenham, just outside London. Had a great life, international travel, Formula One races, worked with Michael Schumacher, did then Ferrari and Benetton Formula One teams, ran the account for Disney, for retail premises for Disney, did all the t-shirts for Tinkerbell, and all of those kind of stuff. So we used to print all of those and take them off to the shops and stuff. So that was absolutely phenomenal, and then ended up in a career in engineering and technology when I moved south, because I don't know, I suppose selling is very sector agnostic, in that if you can sell, you can pretty much sell anything. You should be able to sell anything with the right level of knowledge. And also I just think in sales, if you're still in the same place in 2 years, you're not doing your job properly. Because you should be moving to your next job, your next career, your next uplift. The back end of my career, I was a sales director for an American radio broadcast software company, EMEA markets. Worked in power generation industry for an SME based over in Havant, and then a bit like you, had an epiphany moment where I thought, I've had quite rapid career progression, and there's a lot that I know about a lot of markets. And actually that seat was at school seen as a disadvantage, because you were supposed to want to do something for life.
To specialise. So
everybody's kind of like, shit. And now, who's laughing? You know, you kind of think, well, I know so much about this massive sort of panacea of different markets that I suppose, and it's like anything, you are meant to end up where you end up, and it's about serendipity, about who comes into your life. And I think for me, especially with wanting to look at what we're building with a technological platform, is people should be allowed to do what they want,
Definitely.
irrespective of barriers. And for me, I didn't think that my brain wiring was unusual for the job that I was doing, and it certainly wasn't. But what I could see was being a top 1% sales performer, and I find that hard to say because it makes me want to throw up a bit, it's a bit vomity, because we're not good at that. We're not good at it, and certainly women aren't encouraged to say that they're good at anything. Whereas I just thought it was what was normal for me was normal for other people.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the things you've achieved here, which are insane, they are in comparison to if we took you into Central Portsmouth and said to somebody in Charles Dickens Ward, this is just down the road from you, this is what's possible.
Yeah.
That would be hard for that person to envisage how they would get to where you are. Yet your struggles at school are probably the same as theirs. So we need to create heroes in people that we can see. That we can say to children for the next generation. And I would encourage all schools listening to this, or anybody watching this, to please reach out to your local businesses, and don't just ask them to do rubbish career days. Get them to come out and look around your shops. Come in and have a look. Don't just offer shoddy work experience, and it's not your fault. I'm not having a go at the schools. It's just these are the systems you've been taught that this is what you should be offering children, but these are not what these children's careers are going to look like.
No, not at all. And we're not talking about, we're not trying to talk people out of doing a 9 to 5 grind, because I do a 9 to 5 grind.
Well, I do.
Love my grind.
I do. Yeah. We all do. But what I'm saying is that the jobs of the future are going to look very different.
Definitely.
And there will still be a need for somebody to, for staff for coffee shops on the high street. We need people to be engaged with that. But what I'm saying is our aspirations shouldn't be limited to just perceiving that that's the only offering for people to have, because I think, I remember going, just to tickle you, I went for careers advice, and I remember somebody saying to me, it was like 1988 this was, and I was in front of this was terrifying, careers advisor said to me, well, a clever girl like you should either be a secretary or a teacher. And that was my level of aspiration set at age. That's it, love. My mum was a teacher, my dad was a teacher, and I have a lot of respect for the teaching profession. That's hence why I never went into it. Thank God for you. But what I would say is, there's nothing wrong with a good, solid profession. But if you're not actually built that way, there's nothing wrong with doing something else. And what we need to be better at is creating those channels of communication between schools and business whereby entrepreneurship is encouraged. And one of the things that we've been talking about locally is, and I'll talk to you about this later, is looking at a business education scholarship, which is something that we spoke to our local MP about, Stephen Morgan in Portsmouth, is creating an entrepreneurship education scholarship fund for people to test, for children to test trial. And I think that's something that we should be doing, is where we're encouraging in our local community here, Wickham, it doesn't matter, South Coast, wherever in the country, is creating that national input to where we can start to connect people more fully. And I'm a great believer that we should be working together more closely without agenda. So hopefully that's a really long-winded way of answering your question.
Yes, no, that's a great way.
We will wander off for about 2 hours on this now. There'll be no time left for anybody to do anything like watching telly or anything.
No, I definitely have a similar mantra to that as well. And I think actually education, will become more of an online platform, and people will hopefully be finding the jobs they love.
Well, it will, because we'll be inventing it. So
Exactly. And
through
that's the way forward.
Through what we're doing is, entrepreneurship education is critical to the success and economic development of this country. Now, I'm not going to get my soapbox out later, but it is, and that's what we're redefining that in terms of the technology that we're building for that delivery. I think irrespective of background, people should have access to great things and be able to create great things. And unfortunately, the innovation ecosystem in this country doesn't allow that, and the systems that control that don't allow that. So we've got to take a much more kind of global, maybe US style view, and say we need to disrupt those systems, because in a positive way, and say there is an alternative, and this
Yeah.
here it is. Would you like to buy into that alternative? And it's not going to be massively pricey and costly. It'd be an affordable thing that people should have access to, and in certain ways, we'll take a portion of the profits of what we make from our platform and give it away for free.
Yeah.
Certainly in the international markets that we're looking to put our business and our technology platform into, emerging markets like India and Cameroon, where we already have links. We want to help underrepresented founders, women, people that are neurodivergent. Those, lots of countries that we're looking at in emerging markets don't even have education systems. And we've actually worked with a charity called Urbon that are doing some fantastic stuff around child education in Guinea. And they've just they're building things like toilets to help with women's menstruation projects, because girls can't go to school because they don't have any sanitation.
Yeah. Right.
So there's all these barriers.
These are like foundational things.
These are things that we just take for granted.
Yeah.
So I think there's about taking that money and that profit, and we're a very wealthy society, and I don't think that people realise, because we're very British and we whinge a lot, that if we've got running water, if we've got a roof, if we've got food on the table, then we're probably richer than most of the percentage of the world's population.
Yeah.
And actually you've already made it.
Yeah.
So that for British people is very, very hard to get their head round.
Yeah.
When you look at, I just say travel, it teaches you so much. But from my point of view, I'm with you, just better education, and YouTube's out there. Will it replace the school system? Homeschooling is going to become a lot more prevalent in the next 20 years. I'm a big believer in that. I think there's people like you and I that have got children that can't cope with the system.
Yeah.
So they're not going to engage with the system. So there's a lot of, are we almost going back in time to move forward?
Yeah, well that's it. I think I would have
hard.
engaged more with an online platform that catered to my needs and what I wanted to get out of it and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Instead of, my career advice was trying to join the Army, the Navy or the RAF.
I think we're pigeonholing
like...
that. Yeah, well, I think it's a terrible careers advice, whatever gender you are. I'm not sure I'd want to swap places with you, to be fair. There wasn't much of a choice for either of us, was it? I think, again, we've got to move away from this gender-specific thing. It's just, I know that there's a whole row going on about how people identify and, single-sex toilets and everything else. But I'm a great believer in just leave people alone and let them get on with whatever they're here to do. And, it is really, there's a famous saying, is the thing about common sense is it's not all that common. And I'm a great believer in, I don't think I was judged. I think that was the great thing about growing up in the 70s and 80s, is with that feral generation in Gen X, that we had so much freedom to operate, and I wasn't judged. I was bullied for being a SWAT. I was bullied because I liked learning. I was bullied because I was fat, ginger, northern when I moved down south. But I think bullies will always find there's always something.
Yeah, there's always something.
And actually, I'm glad I wasn't the popular kid, because if I'd have been the popular kid, it would have made me lazy.
Yeah.
And also, I think I wouldn't have been as successful.
Yeah.
Because resilience is the number one thing in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I was bullied, and I used that as a positive. If anything, was a catalyst. So thank you very much for doing that.
No,
because it made me who I am.
I'd like to thank my school bully. I think it was interesting because my school bully I actually saw years later in the pub just after I graduated, and bless her, she'd already got 2 kids. And she was 21, and I thought, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That would be the thing that. And she came up to me and she said, "Oh, how are you?" And I said, "Great, how are you?" And I actually offered to buy her a drink, and I said, because I realised how far apart we both were. And she just said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Look, I've just graduated." I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Oh, I've just got married and I've got a couple of kids." And I just said, "Are you happy?" And she just went, I don't think she was ever.
Yeah.
I think bullies are particularly unhappy peeps.
Yeah.
Hence why they bully. And also, what annoys them most is if you carry on regardless and you become successful and you're happy, the people that are trying to tear you down actually hate that.
Yes.
And actually, your haters are actually your biggest motivators, and also your biggest fans. Hi, everybody. Because they actually promote you. I think it was Nicki Minaj was at an awards ceremony a while ago, and she said something along the lines of, "Hey to all my haters, because you make my YouTube numbers shoot up, with the fact you're watching it because you hate on me so much." So I just think you get, light and shade and everything, and you just be a good person.
Yeah.
And I think everything else happens. And go and find the good people. That's my
Yes,
advice.
surround yourself with
So
good
good people with the right
Yeah.
mindset, positivity, the can-do people. And it's hard because you have to separate family out of the equation sometimes. Get rid of friends that, you know,
Toxic.
are toxic or want to keep you at a certain level,
Yeah.
or they have a certain perception of you and you serve their needs. Often as you rise and ascend, they have to go, unfortunately. But it's part of life, it's part of being a grown-up,
Yeah,
which is
it is.
rubbish. Adulting would not recommend. But I think, you know, it's life is hard.
Yeah.
I think emotional intelligence is a gift, but it can be a curse because then you overthink, you're into analysis paralysis. But don't underestimate your abilities and your gifts. You're here for a reason. Find it, use it, do the thing. And if it's you want to work 9 to 5 and you want to take home your money and look after your family, I admire you.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it. It's not for me. But there's so many people that it does work for that I'm looking at it thinking, have we not right?
Yeah, I know.
You know, if I could have that peace of mind, that is amazing.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
peace of mind.
Yeah,
To always be restless in the way that you and I are is hard.
It is hard. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's mentally hard.
Yeah.
So what I'd say to people is, you know, watch out for mental health, watch for burnout. And if you have specialised brain wiring, and anybody who has a child who has brain wiring that is like this will know the challenges.
Yeah.
But
talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
actually talk to people maybe in a similar situation or that are once removed. It's okay to talk about it. We shouldn't really tar anyone with a brush, really. Should
No,
we? 'Cause
we shouldn't, and we still do. And,
Yeah.
and I think I still, you know, there's some stuff that I told you earlier on today and you were horrified by, but it still happens, you know. Please don't say to people, you know, you don't look like you're special, or treat people as if they're, you know, daft.
Yeah.
Is there anything like it? Is there a well-meaning look of, so most people, we're not stupid. In fact, we're gifted. And I think that we have to be careful that people aren't sort of, this is why I really don't like the term disability, because it's a different ability.
Yes.
It's not a disability in my world, and in technology, believe me, it's not, because people like me and you are programming, you know, the businesses of tomorrow. So it's just, we live in a different, almost like a parallel world.
Yeah.
And operationally, from our perspective, what a neurotypical world looks like doesn't function well for us.
No.
The barriers are so insane that none of this, it's almost like the operating system in the brain doesn't work. But what I would say is, if you have the right advocacy, the right coaches, the right mentors, the right teams, and this is why people who have neurodivergence are successful, is because they accept help.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we've been used to asking for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas a lot of neurotypical people would try and force the thing, and a lot of people with fixed mindset will try and force it because they think that that's the way to, I can do it all on my own, and then they wonder why they're in bed for 7 days with a ton of burnout.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own. You're not, your processing system doesn't allow that, your brain doesn't allow that. So learn your limits, I suppose, especially for younger people.
Definitely.
Just don't try and Rome in a day wasn't built in a day.
No.
So please don't try it. It's I've tried it. He's tried it.
Yeah, I've tried
Don't
it.
work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I
Please
definitely
don't.
work better with a business partner,
People.
with other people.
Yeah.
I've tried 2 businesses myself, and it just fell flat in its face.
You need
And
the bounce off other people, and
Definitely.
I think part of building the Startup Disruptors community was giving people that which they didn't have.
Yeah.
Because they were very isolated, they were very on their own, they were very lonely. They got to a critical point where they perhaps didn't know how to scale, but didn't know who to ask,
Yeah.
didn't know where to get a business partner from, didn't know the right questions to be asking when they're taking on that business partner. So I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Anything else on your wonderful
Yes.
list?
So how did you get started in business? So what was the point that sort of that you got to where you were kind of in the corporate world, and then you were like, you know what, I'm going to do something myself? What sort of mindset were you in?
I'm not a good one, and this is probably going to lead down another route that you wish that you'd asked the question now. So I was probably working in an office, and I was doing my sales job, and I was 23 years of age and probably perimenopausal, though I didn't realise at that point. And just thought, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I looked out the window and thought, there's nothing filling up the heart space. I don't want to continuously make other people rich. What am I doing?
Yeah.
That was it. Went handed my notice in that day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my husband was delighted, poor old Dan, as you can imagine. And he went, ooh, interesting move, Lodge. Bills, a mortgage, and I just went, yeah, because that's me. And I just said, do you know what? Well, you say wing it, but no, because I'd already strategically thought about what I wanted to do. So everybody, it looks like winging it, but you shouldn't wing it. And I just said, look, my ex-boss has said I can go back. In fact, my ex-boss's son is now one of our Neds.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he's amazing.
Yeah.
So still a really good friend. And he just said, look, come back if it doesn't work out, which was a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
In fact, they did everything they could to try and keep me, which was really a blessing. Do you want to work part-time? And I said, do you know, I can't do it. It's just this.
Yeah.
And he just said, right, okay, doors always open. And I said, that's so lovely. And I was really kind of touched by that. And I went out and I made all the mistakes. So I thought, how hard can it be? It was like the Wild West. There was people screwing each other over for 20 quid in the local market. Portsmouth, very transactional mentality. I just thought, oh dear God, I thought, where are the people like me?
Where's the support?
Where's the no support? So, like, every woman needs a good bra. You need a good supporting business as well. It's the same thing. So I just looked around, thought, oh, this is just chronically awful. Checked out all the public sector support. I went to something like 268, I think, different networking meetings. Oh, wow. I'm that sad person, as you know, and I'd been doing that all my life anyway. And I just thought, this is awful, and there was a lot of very sort of lady groups. And I was like, ooh, this doesn't look at all like me. I just don't fit here. I'm not just doing, I don't want to, and there's nothing wrong with any of these groups. It's just
not going to help you grow.
Me.
Yeah.
Where's the B2B
yeah.
groups? Where are the kind of, STEM industry groups? Where are the people that want to earn some money?
Yeah.
Where are the people that want to create businesses that want to scale? And there weren't any.
Right.
And I went to I basically sort of threw up a mate in a pub in the Apsley House, which is now reopened, just off Osborne Road. Quick plug for a local pub in Southsea. And we had 9 people in a pub that first meeting, and then I just talked to people, like you said. What problems? It was the same. No support, rubbish support, workshops that I can't get to during the day. I'm socially anxious. I don't like it. I don't like the provision. I don't like the people that run it. Employees are telling me how to start a business. What's that about? And I just said, right, okay. We went to a bigger pub because we couldn't fit all the people in. We went to the old Customs House in Gunwharf, and Fuller's, ironically, were one of my ex-clients from promotional clothing merchandise sales days. Filled the top of that pub, 100 people in that pub in a year. Facebook group to 1,800 in less than 12 to 18 months. This was pre-COVID. And I thought, oh God, I need to charge or do something, because I was doing sort of like consulting during the day for universities and doing sort of marketing consulting and writing strategy and stuff like that. But that was just the how do you pay the bills stuff. But this was the stuff that I really loved to do. So I just thought, oh, it's just, and people were saying, do a CIC, do a social enterprise, and I was like, nah, there's something more here. There's something more. And long story short, just basically went to the University of Portsmouth Business School, did a thing called a business consultancy project with a bunch of students, said I want to start a subscription-led business, probably backed by some form of technology eventually. What do we think people need? And they came up with a bunch of really clever ideas, some of which we used, some of which we thought, okay, maybe for later or maybe never. And then just carried on building. And then COVID happened, so we gave away business support for free in the Facebook group. I suspended the payments for people during COVID, so that group was more active. I was giving free sessions for the best part of 18 months. I was really quite poorly. I had the paramedics out twice during COVID. They wouldn't take me in, although I couldn't stand at one point. I was really quite poorly for about 18 months, flat out. my thumbs were still working. So I was still doing sort of business support, but I think that for me was the defining moment of, I want to live now, and I want to do something that matters. And I remember there was a point, I think I had a temperature of it, and I've written a piece on Medium about it, about my COVID experience, which is a bit graphic, so be warned if you read it. It's not for the faint of heart. And I had a point where, and it sounds very spiritual, because I'm quite a practical person. I think my temperature was about 41 degrees at this point, and I was putting towels on my head, and they were coming off steaming because my head was so hot. And I think I was just delirious at that point, and I just thought, there's a white light coming towards me, this is the end. I passed out, couldn't remember anything, and then I had a door slam because I was on my own in the house because my husband was away in North Wales during lockdown. I was on my own for 12 weeks, and door slammed, and a voice just said, "Not ready yet, not time to come."
Oh wow.
And I was like, if there's ever a defining moment in your life, that was it. And then literally I got up from that, and then I started coming back, and I was doing some work with the business school as a contractor, started to build, you know, my health and my stamina back up again. Still got long COVID now, so find it quite difficult some days, as a lot of people probably watching this might as well that have ME or CFS understand that as well. So I would actually say that was it.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I was annoyingly Tigger-like before, I'm going to be even more so. And I think that you have these moments in life, because we're old. I'm old, I'm 53 this year. Is you have these moments in life where you realise that you're closer to the end than you are to the beginning.
Yeah.
And there's a very famous saying, which is, "We are born astride the grave," and you actually realise that you haven't got a lot of time left.
Yeah, totally.
So actually, have I been doing the right things? Have I been behaving? And actually the answer was yes. So I thought, annoyingly, I'm just going to do more of that, because it seems to frustrate the hell out of people. So I'll carry on doing those things, and just being good and having good thoughts and being a good person is massively underrated in business, because remember this, my granddad used to say to me, cream rises to the top, the truth will always out. All of these sayings that you're cheesy but are now on to make great Instagram quotes that I'll have to write down my grandfather's 100 pieces of advice to me, and my grandmother's 100 pieces of advice, but just go out and live life, and stop being frightened of doing, of
and
living.
the younger you realise that, the more advantage it is as you get older. So.
Yeah, I think youth, there is another phrase, say youth is wasted on the young. But weirdly, the older you get, the happier you become. Yeah. So if you speak to people in their 80s, and there's a couple of fantastic 80-year-old female influencers on TikTok who are phenomenal, and they're so happy because they just accepted that every day you get as a gift. Yeah. My father-in-law's 85. And he's, still getting done for speeding tickets and all sorts of stuff. And I think that's the life I want to live. Yeah. I don't want to be that person who's thinking I should be wearing beige at the age of 55 and thinking about a Saga cruise, although that's all I'm getting targeted adverts for on Facebook at the moment. So you get to that threshold, and it'd be probably incontinence pants next, and Tenor Lady and all these other sorts of things. But I'm just a great believer in, do what you want to do, and live your life. You only got one. You ain't getting another go at it. No. So why do you give a monkeys what anybody else thinks of you? Yeah. And I think that is I think for women that's so hard, is the one empowering statement I could say to all women, and actually all neurodivergent people that are maybe listening to this or watching this, if you really can master the art of not caring at all what anybody thinks, you'll be so happy. Yeah. And I think as you age as a woman, you get past 50, and biologically, certain changes are happening with menopause. You don't care. You genuinely don't care, and that in itself is quite a threat to people, because you kind of think, well, this didn't work really. That's all right. And I was sold this dream, and that didn't. I think men do it to a certain extent as well. It's like, well, hang on a minute, we were sold the dream of you go to school, you get an education, you work hard, you have 2.4 children, you get a big house and a massive mortgage, and then you're happy, and then the happiness never comes. Yeah. And you're like, because it's an inside job, it's nothing to do with finance and money, and it's nothing to do with that at all. No. And that part for us as British people is very hard, because we're not, it's far too probably, and shall I say it American, because the Americans are very good at their spiritual resilience and their mindset. It sounds far too American to say it, but I think they're good at things that we're really bad at. And actual openness is really important, I think, in life. And that's not British. It's not British to talk about how you feel. I feel for men, because the suicide rates are really, high. And they shouldn't be, because I think the pressure on men, like to go to war,
Yes.
It's very manly. And perhaps Becky would have been better off going to war with her mindset. But because we've got these gender dynamics that are outdated, that we shouldn't be assigning those things.
No, definitely not.
To people. It's just too prescriptive. And that is a threat to the status quo, and also people don't like it when you try and say things that their worldview, and you're talking about the prism of how people think earlier. Everybody has a different worldview, and everybody's entitled to it. Doesn't mean you've got to agree with each other.
No.
It doesn't mean you've got to hate each other just because your view's different. There's room in the world for everybody. But does that answer the question?
It does.
In a long,
that and
really
more.
Hopefully it's circumvented the next 6 questions that you've got on there. Answer them all.
Yeah, it probably does actually.
Yay!
What sort of mindset do you need as an entrepreneur? So I guess really what I'm thinking about on that is, so someone's they're just starting to accept that actually maybe this is achievable. What do you think that they need to harness at that point?
Oh, well, the way I got through it, because I found it very, very hard, was writing things down. So I wrote a book called Don't Build Roller Skates for Birds, my early stage startup story, and I can't pronounce it, which is available on Amazon Kindle. And I had to do that because basically I couldn't have coped if I hadn't have done it. I've got to be honest, my mental health was absolutely awful. I think the first 2 years is the worst. I'm not sure whether you'd agree with that. Isolated, lonely, not making any money. You wonder what the hell you've done. Employment's looking very attractive. Jobs are easy to get. And that's why there's 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Yeah, totally.
Burnout.
It is lonely.
Burnout. So I would say, when people say to me, would you do it again? I'm like, no. I want to do this again.
That's one of my questions.
I probably would. I don't know. I think if I was to do it again, I'd do it differently. But I think when you do it again, having done it and built everything from nothing, you're in a different place anyway, because you've done it before. That's what you forget.
You almost know what not to do.
Intuitively, you know what to do. And also, what I would say to people is, you're not learning to run a business, you're learning to run yourself. Because for the first time, the business bit is easy. I've got to be honest, that's 20% of the problem. 80% is the mentality of who you are, self-awareness, emotional resilience, how aware you are of the damage that you're causing to yourself and others, what support systems you need around that. And in the book, I actually write a checklist where I describe it sort of like you've got an angel and a devil on your shoulder. And I've actually got a checklist of questions that I say you need to ask yourself all of these questions before you start. And you need to be honest with yourself, and you need to speak to your family, and you need to say to your family, there's a strong chance these things are going to happen. We're going to get divorced. It's very real. I'm going to have no time for the children. You're going to hate me a lot. I'm going to be very, very focused on things that you have absolutely no cognition about and you don't need to be interested in it, but you just need to support me. So it's a very selfish occupation, and I think actually that's why men thrive at it rather than women. And I'm not trying to be divisive when I say this. The way that the sort of emotional and physical labour in the household in the world doesn't enable women
the traditional way
in the same way as it perhaps should. So women have already got so much on that to add this on top of it is going to be crippling. So I would say be careful what you wish for. Also, if you're a woman in business, other women aren't your enemy or your competition. Please get that out of your head. Society's been very good at placing women against women. We've done this through how our standards of beauty, how we tell women they've got to be skinny, how we tell them that intelligence isn't an attractive trait. there's so many systems that we're working against on that school. People who always, sort of look at me as kind of a bit of an oddity. I've always been a really terrible girl. I've never really understood. I wasn't interested in dolls. In fact, my mum bought me a Cindy and the poor person's Barbie. And Cindy, in my early childhood, I flushed her head down the toilet because I was so disappointed that I hadn't had an Action Man. Because I wanted an Eagle Eyes one, which my mate Matthew Thompson, 2 doors down, had one. And I was like, but I'm into trucks and tanks and warfare. Yeah. And my mum was like, oh, jeez. So I think it's about that thing. And equally, there's kids out there. I mean, I've seen a couple of my friends' children, they want to play with dolls, and their boys are like, yes, go for it. We shouldn't be. The segregation starts so early on. Yeah. And we really just need to be kind of more open to that. But I would say just know yourself, know who you are. I think that's it from my point of view. Because if you don't, you're going to get a very rude awakening.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I was lucky because I do know, and probably a bit like you, we're of an age where we go, oh yeah, really close to burnout now, I need to stop doing this.
Yeah. You start to understand your limits, I think.
You do, and you know what the limits are, but when you're young, you will just work. You do too much, you'll burn out, you don't have a clue even what you're doing most days. So just be careful, look after yourself, and have that person that sense checks you. So your wife is probably yours, and my husband is mine. So it's like, you need to tell me when enough is enough. Yeah. And then just move on from it. Yeah. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, it does. What's some of the biggest challenges you have faced as an entrepreneur? And how did you overcome them?
Oh, crikey. I think we've been through them all. I'd say primarily here, where we are, is being taken seriously at all. We haven't got the hours, have we, to talk about this one?
We'll turn that into another podcast.
Turning that into another question of the day. Funding, diabolically bad for women. Less than 3% of venture capital funding goes to women globally, less than 1% of angel investment money, but we're going to change that together. So all the things, that's changing from my point of view. We will change it, because I'm not living with that, not as long as I'm breathing, living, and somebody shuts the door during COVID and says, not done yet. Then no, we're not done. Till the wealth gets more equally redistributed, we're not finished on that yet. So funding's massive, I think, for anybody. I don't even think that's a woman thing. I think that's an accessibility thing.
I think it is. Yeah.
If you haven't got a credit rating, as society is predicated on financial control. So if you've defaulted on your phone bill, if you've defaulted on your mortgage, you're not a good bet. And this is how the banks control all that wealth and those systems. So that's a societal infrastructure problem that we need to talk about on another podcast, because I'll rant on all week. But I would say being taken seriously as a woman, and I think it's wrong. I think you shouldn't say female entrepreneur, it's just entrepreneur. Doesn't make any difference to me. I think that female entrepreneurs networks are useful, but not useful, because you can get bogged down in the old, oh, but we're women, oh, it's a real shame, but but then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because actually what you need to do as a woman, I think, is actually go to wonderful people like you, and most of them, male allies are really important, because you're the people that can actually help us change the system, or help advocate for us. So the reason I've been so successful and actually quite lazy in my career is because I've had really, really strong male support, where actually I just abdicate a lot of the work. So I'll just say, oh well, this isn't going to work because they want to speak to a boy, so over to you. And then in sales teams you open the door, and that's how it works. And it's shameful, and it's wrong, but
you're using the system against itself,
reversing the system. So how do you get to be that top 1% or 3%? That's how you do it. You're reversing the system, and you're politically aware and astute enough to realise what works and what doesn't work, and also how do you win together with other people.
Definitely.
But if you haven't got that corporate experience, if you haven't got that political awareness, that's I mean, God, that's almost impossible. If I think of what I was like when I was at school, and if I wanted to start a business now without all this experience that I've got, I would have failed. because
Yeah.
it's only that 32 years of experience and navigating life that gives you the skills.
Yeah.
So you're learning every day is a school day in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah, I believe that.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
question.
What else? What do you think keeps you motivated in entrepreneurship?
I always get accused a lot of being difficult, and I don't like that phrase because it's applied a lot to women. Actually railing against the patriarchy, I think, is what keeps me going. Is
Yeah.
if there's not something to rail against, and there's a lot to rail against when you're built like us, I'd be bored. And actually, there was one of my bosses that once said, I think my mum once said, I think my daughter was born riding along in the pram, sticking up two fingers to the world. And I think perhaps I was radicalised when I was very young because I did sociology at A level, and I read a lot around women's empowerment. And I'm from the north of England, or the Midlands. It's not really the north. And then I was educated in the north of England, and there's a very different political imperative once you get past the Midlands. So anybody, hello, friends from Midlands and the north, we're different. We're built differently. Southerners can really struggle with that, because there's so much wealth in the south that there's never really been that sort of level of competitiveness and scarcity that there's been in the north. So I think that really helps with entrepreneurship because you actually have a natural competitiveness, and not in a bad way. It's more of kind of a collective competitiveness that you want to have fun, you want to make a living, you want to do the things together. But it's difficult to do that when society doesn't, feel like it should be as accepting as perhaps it is. But yeah, that's what I would say for that one.
Cool. And do you have like mentors that you
Yes.
that you work with?
I have a bunch of
and
them.
that
Hopefully
does that
It's been written again.
I think we'll be mentors to each other.
I know, and that's what's
because
peer-to-peer mentoring is really important.
I think that's massively important.
I can't express just how important that level is. Is almost to say, and I have to say this because it's just me and everybody would expect to say, I'm being a dick this week. I've done this. It was stupid. Please hold me accountable. Or actually, before I take a huge risk, what can't I see? I think one of the things that I don't know if it's just being a woman or being just naturally how I am, that I won't actually go to something until I've got a bunch of opinions. And because I don't know what the risk is in full, because I can't see what you see. I can't see what this person over here sees, or what. And actually,
I love a second opinion.
That's why diversity is so important. It's like now I suppose a white middle class woman. Originally, that social mobility for me has happened. I mean, somebody might even call me upper class. I don't know. Probably not because of the accent or the private school education, but it's that social mobility. Can actually happen. But I think peer-to-peer mentoring is really valuable. Also, knowing how you're coming across. Part of that for me is an active choice. There'll be scenarios where I'll choose to be deliberately difficult. If somebody isn't giving me what I want and I know that they're not engaging with me, they will perceive me as being difficult. But anybody who knows me will know that if you haven't got any money, I will give you my last penny and the shirt off my back and my car keys. So again, it's about levels of trust. So peer-to-peer mentoring, I've got a venture capital mentor, a guy called Chris Topman, who sold his company for 700 million, so he knows what he's talking about in technology. He's been awesome for a decade, owns a company called Notion Capital. I've been lucky enough to be mentored by Gary Vaynerchuk, who owns VaynerMedia in America, and his COO has been, James Orsini, has been quite pivotal in making some of the introductions that we've had. And people say, wow, you've had all of this from corporate. These were new contacts, but I just knew how to get them and engage with those people. And that was what took me 32 years to learn. So people will say, oh, wow, you just spoke. So it looks like, no, it's taken me, I've been building for this for 32 years. So if somebody makes something looks easy, it's because I say to people, if you want to play the piano and you sit down at the piano, are you going to be able to play to grade 8 level in the first week?
No chance.
Can you have shorten you know, the germination of the fabulous human body. You know, if you want to get pregnant, can you shortcut the 9 months pregnancy?
No.
Can you shortcut parenting to get somebody to 18?
No.
Why are you expecting that you're going to build a business and have a cracking success within 18 months? You ain't.
Yeah. No.
And to be honest, you're either a bit deluded or lazy or both, because life doesn't work that way.
No.
So you have to be careful that there's not a level of naivety around that. But sense checking, that's why it's important.
Yeah,
And we get a lot of that in our community. I'm going to build this business, it's going to be like that. I'm like, so seriously, no.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually what we try and do is prevent people from making costly errors very early on. So we've seen a lot of people sign up commercial leases for 7 years. They haven't even got a customer.
Yeah.
Or a business plan. What are you doing? Well, I got a bank loan. People with ADHD especially. What are you doing? Well, I thought it'd be a great idea. It's just the end of my road and I can travel there every day. But you haven't got a business plan or any experience in this, or the bills, the broadband. Have you costed it all out? Nope.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's a bad experience straight off the bat, isn't it?
Is.
I mean,
and I get it. You know, this is the person that hands a notice in and then goes home.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between doing that and signing up to a commercial lease that's going to cost you. You probably know better than I do.
£30,000.
30k minimum per annum.
Yeah.
That is commercial suicide, and we see a lot of stupid, very daft financial mistakes with people with ADHD, and there's a link between ADHD and debt.
Yeah.
So a lot of our stuff is around prevention of changing your mindset to say, is there a way that we could do this?
Yeah.
That could be less dangerous.
Yeah.
Less risky for you, still give you the outlet for the dopamine hit that you're seeking through your brain, but that would actually
provide them with a path to get there.
You slightly more financially. And I think this is again why failure happens a lot, because 97% of the people we have helped, of the 5,000 startups I've coached, have an additional need. Dyslexia, or ADHD, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, anything adding an AIA or so we know that this is a really huge problem, and failure rates actually, I think, are less to do with rubbish business support and more to do with the fact that it's not designed for neurodivergent people to engage with, and that's what we're changing. So hopefully that answers that question.
Absolutely fantastic. Can you share a failure or a setback you've experienced, and what lessons did you learn from it?
How long have you got? You and I
got a couple more questions after that.
Seriously, we should have done a podcast hour for each of this. Oh God, so many F-ups. I've got to be honest. Absolute finishers, you know. Year one, I was working with a company, took a subcontractor in, thought it was trustworthy, didn't have a contract. We're working on some skills with the company. I went away for the weekend, came back in Monday morning. Next thing you know, subcontractors got all the business, and that was all my income gone. That was quite a clanger.
How did you come back from something like that?
Didn't. Took me a really long time. Took me about 6 months to recover from that emotionally, I think. Didn't do it again. God forbid, no, didn't do it again. That's that transactional relationship that I talk about, and that's just wrong. You know, you shouldn't be doing that. Why bite the hand that feeds you? Because you live in a community, and word gets out. A lot of it sometimes is sparked by misogyny and woman hating, because actually I'll screw her over now. She doesn't deserve to do this. She'll get back in the kitchen. All of the stuff that we talked about earlier. This will finish her. So sorry, boys, hasn't happened yet. You know, coming into year 10. But I think trust is a really hard thing. I think my biggest, I'm very much what we call Myers-Briggs psychometric ENFJ. So I'm a feeler. In fact, I'm sort of borderline ENTP, which is the classic profile of an entrepreneur. So emotional, intuitive. I'm a gut instinct kind of person. People think that that's a weakness, and actually it's not, because I know exactly what you're doing. And I'll let you test the bandwidth, and then I'll pull you in. And then you're probably going to be destroyed at that point if you're not trustworthy. So be careful, because people will think that that's a weakness, and it's not. Also, people who are intuitive are usually 5-10 years ahead of you, because they know what you need before you even know it yourself. So that's a skill. That's part of my makeup. But yeah, I can't honestly. I've lost so much money, it's bonkers.
But you've always learned from each setback.
But I think for me, it's, if you want the most expensive learning experience on the planet, entrepreneurship is a good one.
Yeah.
But I would also say it's the competitiveness against yourself that is the thing that motivates you. You're not competing against anybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
What you're doing each day is getting up and being a better version than you were yesterday, and thinking, actually, I learned from that. I'm going to move on from it. I won't do that again.
Yeah. So just try and grow from it.
But as you get further down the loop, and this is what you're saying about mentors and NEDs and non-exec, directors, and it's that help and that support is critical for your success, because those people will shape you to take the hits.
Yeah.
And as a woman, this sounds really wrong, but there's a whole debate going on TikTok at the moment. It was like, if you were to leave your 4-year-old daughter in the woods, would it be with a man or a bear? And the bear wins. Is because you're not as protected as being a woman in business as you are if you're a man, because the dynamics are different, and you need. So what I do is I just surround myself with men. It's harder to come after an army than an individual. Yeah. So if you've got a really strong, robust support team, and a diverse one, we're very lucky because my team's quite diverse, and I'm trying to make it more so. But it's hard to come after numbers. When I started off and it was just me in a pub and there's 9 people, people are like, nothing in it, and we're 100. I was like, okay, still interested, but dicking about in pubs. And then we're 1,000, 2,000 on Facebook, and then I think we've got a following now like 25,000 and a reach of 500,000 on social, and then people come for you. But they come for you all the time. I don't think that ever changes, because we're very, very bad at hatred in this world. We should be better at love, and if you actually are giving out love, then people hate you for that. I don't know why that is, but there we go. So I'd say learn from your mistakes, don't do it again, but don't let it change you. One of the things I've always thought is, especially when I've been let down by people or a person, I always think it actually says more, their behaviour says more about them than it does about you. If they're toxic, if they've got a lot of pain, there's another famous saying which is hurt people hurt people. So they are projecting that on you, and that's because you're happy. That's a projection onto you. So empaths traditionally are neurodivergent, and they attract a lot of narcissists. It's like this kind of magnetic attraction, so you will pull it. There'll be a lot of people that will come in thinking there's something in it for me. Terribly good at spotting those. And sort of like a series of jumps, loops and tests that I will put a person through before something will happen. And that, again, 32 years of experience, and coming to my peers and saying, is this person a bit of a dick? What's their reputation if they're from here? And really back to that whole Derek Trotter thing of, you just pick the phone up and just say, if there's somebody in Southampton that you're dealing with, hi, such and such, do you know such and such? Are they any good? Do they pay their bills on time? Don't touch them, they're awful, they don't pay.
Bit of due diligence.
So that informal gossip is actually your friend,
definitely,
but only if you're listening to the right people, and don't be caught up. You get a lot of this kind of very, and it really frustrates me, is this kind of very kind of snarky, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you not concentrating on yourself? There's nothing to do what they're doing. Even carry on, there's your patch of grass over there, but water that. Because I've never, that's not something I ever have, and just waste your time while you're having a bit of a, and I suppose everybody likes a bit of bitching and gossip because we're British, but it's no, that's time wasting on something that's not productive. What are you doing? And there's people that spend their lives liking doing that, at school gates, and no, man, what are you doing?
Nellies.
Get rid of them. I mean, there's radiators or drains. There's 2 types of people. You stand next to them and they feel warm. They're a radiator, keep them in your life. You stand next to them and it feels like your soul's disappearing down the drain. Get them out of your life as fast as you can. You don't want the drains in your life, you want the radiators. So just keep moving, and as long as you're moving, as long as you're learning, you can't fail. Failure, I think, fail is first attempt in learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is the way that you look at the world. Do I feel like this every day? No. I've got to be honest. People find me annoyingly positive, but there's days when I'm like, I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a rest. Everything's rubbish. I'm crying my eyes out. Everything's gone wrong. I'm like WhatsApp. I hate my life. I feel like, are you just having a bad day? So usually can be sorted by a rest, have a little nap, a rest, something to eat, or some company.
Yeah, right.
For people that are neurodivergent. Have you eaten today? No, I haven't eaten this week. We get a lot of that in our group. Are you dehydrated? When was the last time you had a drink? It's basics,
Yeah.
But neurodivergent are really bad at looking after themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're hyper-focusing on building the next thing they're going to make millions of. So yeah, hopefully that answers that one.
Yeah. And do you have like a long-term goal that you see yourself getting to, or do you think this is a work in progress as far as you can go?
Oh good God, these questions are good. I wasn't expecting all of these. Life's a work in progress. I have an end goal. I've built a technology platform. Get out quick.
Yeah.
Get out before I'm 60. So
Then retire?
No, because I couldn't do that. I think we'll look back at this when we filmed it, because you and I will be doing this together in 7 years' time. No, because you and I will be funding other people to live their dreams.
That's definitely the dream.
And I look at my life, and it sounds really sickly and it annoys a lot of me. I've already made it. Look at what we've done all day today. I've won the lottery. I have a fantastic life. I have a great family. I have fantastic friends and support. I've made it. No, I don't think that any amount of money, what people are getting wrong in life, I think is not enjoying the now. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about you build the thing, you have the big hat, and it's like, well, hang on, okay, you've built all this thing, and now you're 65, and you're going to be, your average age of mortality in Britain is 80 if you're a woman, slightly less if you're a man. You only got 5 years to enjoy life. And most people die within 18 months of retirement while you're retiring. And what are you doing for the next generation? Most people actually, it's funny because mortality is declining, actually, because we're getting fatter and less fit. But some people will live till 100. If we're women, we've probably got maybe more chance than you. Not with my lifestyle. What do you want your life to look like? How long have you got left? Because I did some mentoring for some women, and I actually put up little bricks on a brick wall of how many months I've probably got left of my life.
Yeah.
And then, do you really want to be having that argument over your tree with your neighbour that's
Yeah.
not
limited time on earth left,
but you've got left? You want to really be engaging in illegal? Okay, you get on with that, because my brick wall here says that's going to take. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think people don't use their time, and I think people don't realise that time is the only commodity we have and the only thing we can't buy back.
I think if you're doing what you love, which could be investing in other people, for example, then you would never stop working because it's what you love.
I don't think it's even about money for me. It's about, I think investing is kind of a nebulous term, because it's about, in my view, we're born with a gift. It is our responsibility to share that gift and give it away.
Yeah.
End of. So if you have that, and that for you and me is business knowledge, then that's what we give away. If it's emotional intelligence around being human, then we give that away. If it's whatever it is, it could be, and Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this, if your passion is talking about Smurfs, then go and talk about Smurfs on the internet. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That is your gift, that is what you were here to create. And I think so many people just never find the thing. Because actually my thing isn't business. I've got most of it, it's pretty boring. My thing is actually saying, how do we solve a problem that's never been solved before?
Yeah.
How do we do that collectively together? How do we bring the right skills in for that? I think that's what I actually get. I suppose it's more of a more creative thing, around being innovation and creation. Is how do you create something? And that is what I think I find exciting.
Nice. Last question.
Hit me.
if there was someone out there that was looking to start a business, what would be that one piece of advice that you would give
Don't
them?
do it. No, I did that. Think hard before you do it. What do you want your world to look like? Because everybody says that they want the big money, but do you really? Because you have no idea how much of your life you're going to have to give away. You know, there's so few people that get funded by venture capital. Like, I think it's like less than, they'll probably correct me later when I put this out, but less than 0.01% globally. So it's very likely you're building a sustainable SME or small and medium-sized enterprise. That's the reality. That's 99% of businesses in Britain. And you're going to take, on average, to build one of those to $1 million. There's very few people in the country that are millionaires. So don't get excited about that either, sorry. I would say realistically, most people are going to be building something up to 85k, which is going to be really beneficial because it's probably more than the national living wage, which is 36. But that's going to take you potentially 3 to 5 years, maybe up to 10. Most people do this for work-life balance, weirdly, which they don't end up getting. So I would say, and also what I'd say to people is have a day job or do part-time job and then do this on the side. Lower the risk, grow it sensibly, take your time. Don't be frustrated with the lack of pace, because patience pays off. And don't isolate yourself. And don't think that you're cleverer than everybody else, because you're not.
No.
You know, my ethos is there's always, and I'm a huge believer in this, and the more I see of the world, there's many more people in this world much cleverer than me. There just are. And if you think you're the cleverest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Go and find another room. So you need to start upping the ante on the people that you're hanging around with. If there's people in your group telling you that you can't do it, get rid of them. And if that's your family, limit the time with them. Be careful that the people that you are closest to might not like it as you become more successful. And that can fracture marriages, friendships, relationships. So you've got to decide what you're going to give up. So again, it can be seen as quite a selfish occupation. But I don't think that prioritising who you are is selfish, but for women it often is considered to be selfish. But I've been very blessed that I've been lucky to be in a position where I can take those risks, and I've had a supportive family that have done that. Not everybody is able to do that.
No.
And I've been criticised quite heavily, because it's like, well, you don't have any kids, and I'm like, life's about choices, isn't it? My choice is that I would have been, and I had this discussion with my sister, who's a wonderful parent. I would have been useless as a parent. I've got to be honest, absolutely awful, because parenting is huge in my mind. You can't do anything better on the planet than be a parent. That's my view. Business is easy in relation to what you're going to have to do as a parent. So my respect for people is like, I bow down, because but it's about choices. And I think for women also, we still have to make those choices, because I knew that if I hadn't have carried on doing what I was doing, that I would have had no career to go back to.
Exactly.
So my choices have been hard, but for different reasons. And actually society vilifies you for not having children as a woman still. So because you've not fulfilled your societal imperative of procreation, and which is bonkers. But again, I just think we need to change this narrative around expectations of what people should be doing and what people's skills are. But I would say my advice is careful what you wish for, take it slowly, plan it well if you can, try and be consistent, because I think that's really hard for a lot of dyslexic people and a lot of ADHD people. And doing one small thing each day is enough, because you've got time. You've genuinely got time. There's nobody putting any pressure on you except you. Take your time, breathe, enjoy it. I mean, we're insane. Nobody enjoys this journey. And you have to be slightly, you have to be slightly bonkers, because nobody in their right mind would do it. Or certainly not the way that the structures and the systems are at the moment. So I think, there is a lot for the top 5% of the population, might be watching this thinking, oh, this is just nuts because I get, funding and it's easy. And you are, because you're the top 5% of the population. You've probably got a degree, you've probably got a master's, you've got university spin outs, you've got, it's a different thing. But for those people who are from areas of deprivation, who are in regional markets, their experience is phenomenally different.
Definitely.
And we have to be aware that there's that huge disparity in provision in the UK.
Amazing.
I think that covers it.
Yeah, thank
We
you very
talked
much.
enough.
Yeah, that was a long one.
I don't, the camera's probably like batteries
I
probably
know. I
gone
was just
and
wondering.
failed.
if
So
they're
let's
still
just go and
going.
see if it's still there or not. But anyway, it's been great to talk to everybody. So yeah, we've been 1 hour 39.
Oh wow, really?
I know. So there you go. Give us a wave goodbye.
See you later.
Bye.
Join